This morning you received a sign. You just didn't realize it was a sign. Maybe it was a song that started playing at the exact moment you were thinking about them. Maybe it was a bird that behaved in a way birds don't normally behave. Maybe it was a smell, sudden, sourceless, in a closed room, and you froze for a second, and then you told yourself, no, that's a coincidence. My grief is looking for meaning where there isn't any, and you kept moving. But part of you, the part that froze for that second, already knew before your mind had time to explain it away. Today we are going to break this down completely. Every type of sign, how each one works, what exactly they are trying to communicate, and why Edgar Cayce, a man who conducted 14,000 trance sessions, said that most people receive messages constantly. They just don't know how to read them. After this video, you will start noticing what has always been right there beside you. Stay with me, because the first thing I'm going to tell you will change how you look at the last several months of your life. Here is what most people do wrong. They wait for the big sign, thunder from a clear sky, a vision, a voice. Something so obvious it's impossible to ignore. And while they're waiting for the big, they miss the small. But Cayce said, the small is real, the quiet is genuine, because those who have crossed to the other side don't work with thunder. They work with what's available, with what already exists in your physical world, and they use it precisely, economically, with specific meaning. Every sign is a limited resource, an effort, not an accident. Cayce explained the mechanics like this. Those who have crossed cannot simply pick up a phone and call. The physical world operates by laws that don't allow direct intervention, but they can work with probabilities, with subtle fields, with those moments when physical reality is flexible enough to accept a small push from outside. And they use those moments, deliberately, precisely. So when it happens, it is not an accident, it is a choice. Someone from the other side chose this specific moment, this specific channel, specifically for you. Now, the channels, each type of sign, and how to tell the real thing from coincidence. The first, electronics, the most common and the most easily dismissed. The phone turns on by itself, a light flickers for no reason, the radio comes on playing that song, the TV switches to the channel you always watch together. Cayce explained why this channel is used most often. Electronics operate through electromagnetic fields, and consciousness freed from a physical body is itself an informational field with specific frequency characteristics. Influencing electromagnetic systems is incomparably easier than moving physical objects. It's the closest bandwidth they have for interacting with our world. How do you tell a real sign from a technical glitch? Cayce gave 3 criteria. First, timing. It happens at a moment connected to this person. On their birthday. In the moment when you're at your lowest, in the moment you just thought of them. Second, specificity. It's not just the radio turning on. It turns on and plays that exact song. It's not just a light flickering. It flickers at a specific moment in a specific conversation. Third, your reaction. Cayce said, the body knows before the mind. If your breath caught, if goosebumps appeared, if tears came without warning, that is not superstition. That is your consciousness recognizing the source of the signal. A real story. A woman lost her mother. 3 weeks after the funeral, midnight, she can't sleep, sitting in the kitchen, thinking about how her mother always called her at exactly this time when she sensed her daughter was struggling. In that exact moment, the phone rings. Number unknown. She answers. Silence. But not empty silence. The kind in which you feel a presence. She says out loud, "Mom, I know it's you," and for the first time in 3 weeks, she doesn't feel alone. Cayce would have said, the channel opened just enough for the signal to come through. No more, but enough. Have you ever received something like that? Not necessarily a phone call, something with electronics that had no explanation. Wait, don't answer yet, because after what you hear next, you'll understand exactly what it was. The second channel, birds and animals, the oldest type of sign, referenced in cultures across the entire world long before any modern spiritual practice. Cayce explained this through receptivity. Animals don't have that layer of rational consciousness that constantly filters human perception. They are literally more open to influence from non-physical fields. They are easier to guide, not in the sense of manipulation, but in the sense of a gentle nudge toward the right place at the right moment. A robin that lands on your window on the day of a funeral and stares for 7 minutes without flying away. That is not a coincidence. That is the use of an available channel. How do you tell? Behavior atypical for that species, a duration of contact atypical for a wild animal, and, most importantly, your immediate reaction. If you saw that bird and your first thought was of this person, not because you were looking for a sign but because it simply arrived. Cayce said, the first reaction is the most honest. The mind hadn't filtered it yet. In America, thousands of cases have been documented of cardinals, those brilliant red birds, appearing at critical moments of grief. So consistently and so specifically that researchers studying after-death communication have dedicated entire studies to it. The folk tradition says when a cardinal appears, a loved one is near. Cayce would have given this not a mystical but a precise explanation. That bird, with its brightness and visibility, is an ideal instrument for someone who wants to catch the attention of a specific person at a specific moment. The third channel, smells, the most inexplicable and the most personal, because a smell cannot appear from nowhere. No source, no smell. That's how physics works, and that's exactly why a sudden smell of a deceased person's perfume, in a closed room with no physical explanation, is one of the most consistently documented types of contact in Cayce's archives. Why smell? The neural pathways responsible for olfaction are anatomically most directly connected to the brain regions responsible for emotional memory and intuition. It is the most direct route to the part of your consciousness that already knows, that already recognizes. This is why this channel is used when something very personal needs to be transmitted, something that only this person would say to you, and no one else. Your mother's perfume, your grandfather's tobacco. That specific smell of baking you associate with one person in the entire world. When it appears without a source, it is not a trick of memory, it is a signature. The fourth channel, coincidences, the hardest to accept, because there is always an alternative explanation. You think of them, and their favorite song starts playing in a store. You see their name 3 times in one day in completely unrelated contexts. You open a book at random, and the first line your eyes land on is exactly what they used to say to you when they were alive. Cayce described the mechanics like this. Consciousness that has crossed to the other side doesn't create these coincidences from nothing. It works with probabilities, slightly shifts the probability that your attention will land on exactly this, exactly now. Subtle influence, almost at the edge of what's possible, which is exactly why it is so precise. How do you tell? Cayce said it simply. 1 coincidence, possibly chance. 3 coincidences in one day on one theme. That's a message. Don't look at individual events. Notice the clusters. Notice when the universe insists. Now, dreams. A separate category. The most powerful channel. Cayce said, a dream is the only channel in which the connection can be two-way. Not just a sign, contact, conversation. And here is how to tell a real contact dream from an ordinary dream about someone you've lost. An ordinary dream. Memory processing. Fragmented, illogical. The person behaves differently than they did in life. Everything is blurred. A contact dream. Different. Fundamentally different. It doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like a meeting. The person looks healthy, calm, better than they ever looked in life. They say little, specifically, often, one key phrase. And you wake up not with a vague recollection, but with a precise one, with the feeling that it was real. Because, according to Cayce, it was real. Here is the story that stops me every time. A man lost his father with whom he never made peace, a serious conflict. The father died suddenly. The son carried this weight for 2 years. He dreamed of his father, but these were ordinary dreams, anxious, with a sense of incompletion. And then, 2 years later, something different happened. A dream in which his father simply stood and looked at him. for a long time, without words, and then said 3 words. Just 3. Words the father had never said in life, that the son had never heard from him, but that were exactly what he had needed to hear his entire life. The son woke up in tears, not from grief. He described it as the first moment in 2 years when the weight, literally, physically, lifted. Cayce's explanation. On the other side, there are no barriers that prevented a person from saying what they felt. Death removes all of them. What the father couldn't say in life, he said when it became possible. Many of you know exactly what I'm talking about, because many of you have had that dream, and you remember it. Not like a regular dream, like a meeting. Now, feathers, because this comes up in comments more than anything else, a white feather that appeared from nowhere, in an enclosed space, at the right moment. Cayce said, the feather itself is not the sign. The context of its appearance is the sign. The place, the timing, your immediate reaction. A feather is one of the simplest channels for influencing the physical world. A small object, light, subject to the slightest movement of air. An ideal instrument for someone who wants to say one thing. I'm here, right now, right here with you. And here is the most important thing, Cayce said. The thing that was worth staying for. He said, signs don't come to people who are searching for them. They come to people who are open. The difference is enormous. When you search with tension, you close yourself. When you simply remember, simply feel, without effort and without demand, the channel opens on its own. And what arrives in the next few minutes is worth noticing. He also spoke about how to respond when a sign arrives. Don't analyze immediately. Don't look for an explanation. The first thing to do, acknowledge it. Out loud or inside. Simply say, I see it. I hear it. I know it's you. Cayce said, this completes the circuit. This confirms the signal was received, and it makes the next contact more likely. Because you showed that the channel works. The message got through. The effort was not wasted. And one final thing. In 1942, someone asked Cayce directly, do the dead hear us when we speak to them out loud? The answer from Trance was immediate. He said, they don't hear the words. They hear the intention behind the words you haven't spoken yet. Sit with that for a moment. They hear what you're about to say, before you've said it, because they don't perceive sound waves. They perceive your consciousness directly, your state, your truth. This means the following. Every time you think of them, they receive it. Every time you miss them, they know. Every time you're angry that they're not here, they feel that too. You are never speaking into emptiness. Never. One final question. An honest one. Have you had a sign you couldn't explain? A feather? A smell? A song? A dream that was different from other dreams? A bird that looked at you for too long? A coincidence that was too precise to be random? Write it in the comments, not because you need to prove anything to anyone, but because when you acknowledge it, you do exactly what Cayce advised doing when a sign arrives. You complete the circuit, you say, I received it, and the one who sent it hears.